The Jasper Library Building Committee has made its final recommendations. More on that. Plus, the Huntingburg City Council is considering new fire safety measures and floodplain policies. And Dan Wilkinson talks about Lincoln Amphitheater's Trail of Terror tonight on Informed. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin tonight with Jasper Police investigating the vandalism of a pair of office trailers. JPD says 2 job site office trailers owned by Mesmer Mechanical were broken into and damaged sometime between last Friday, October 3rd and this past Sunday, October 5th. Police say the trailers had been parked in the 100 block of Centennial Drive near Centennial Park on the city's north side. Nothing of value was in the trailers, though police say they both sustained extensive damage. Repair costs are being estimated at more than $2,000. Now, anyone who has any information on what happened or who did it is asked to call the Jasper Police Department at 482-2255. You can also call the department's anonymous tip line at 481-COPS. Discussions continue surrounding the future of the Jasper Library. Last night, the Jasper Library Building Committee gave its final recommendations to the Jasper Library Board. These recommendations are the same as they were before, rebuilding on the current Jasper Library site, utilizing part of the former Hoosier Desk building as the new library, or building a new library on land along South Newton Street. Now, work on the current building does have options involved with it. Those are to tear the current building down and build a new one from the ground up, or do a 2-phase rebuild that would allow for part of the old building to remain open while construction goes on in the other area. Brad Ward is the chairman of the building committee. He says even with these space issues, the current site can still be part of the future.
We certainly, within our recommendations, feel that you have to take a look at the existing building. The engineer reports are a bit troubling to kind of work around, and we have to reconfigure that space to make it work.
Now, the committee previously discussed several different issues with the current building. These include aisles that are too narrow, the height of shelves, and no room to grow the building's collection. The current building is 11,000 square feet as a whole, and just 3,400 square feet of it is used for housing their collection. The library is looking to more than double the size for any future building. The plans call for 25,000 to 30,000 square feet of space. The former Hoosier Desk building and the South Newton Street property also remain as options. The Hoosier Desk building was recommended by consultants Gamble and Associates. That firm put together the city's downtown riverfront master plan, as you may recall. Ward says the Hoosier Desk site would take work in the form of public and private partnerships to make things happen.
So it's 130,000 square feet, so clearly the library would only need to control a portion of that particular facility, 30, 40,000 feet. If you were to work into a partnership with the Arts Commission, would easily fit both of those ventures because there would be so much opportunity for shared space, the conference rooms, the training rooms, all that. You start to split that between the two, and it becomes a very comfortable square footage that actually reduces both of their footprints.
As for the South Newton property, Ward says it's a bit of a wild card because it was voted down during the previous referendum in 2011. However, he says there is good reason for having it as an option.
That's a challenging one because we have never as a community talked about the south side nearly as much as we talk about developing the north side of our river. But I think it's important that we think about the next 100 years. Do we always want to have just the emphasis on the north side of our river, or do we want to take an opportunity to have some city visioning and sit down with our city leadership and infrastructure and see how can you develop both sides of the river?
The committee has briefly discussed sites outside of the downtown area, but the idea of such a location has not gained much traction. As for Ward, he maintained his stance that the library should stay as close to downtown Jasper as possible.
As far as I'm concerned, downtown is the heart of this city, and we need to promote that capacity to encourage a civic center that brings people to the downtown, whether it be for recreation or shopping or things like the civic uses of the library. Each of the sites are within 0.3 to 0.4 miles from the courthouse, so that creates that synergy of our downtown redevelopment.
The Jasper Library Board's goal is still to bring the issue to a referendum in November of 2015. That would mean deciding on an option by April of 2015. Changes in the definition of floodplains in Huntingburg could affect some folks and their insurance costs. Last night, the Huntingburg City Council approved a new ordinance that redraws the floodplain maps for the city. The previous map dates back to 1998. Huntingburg Mayor Denny Spenner says the changes needed to be made in light of new federal regulations.
The changes in the floodplain are determined by FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and those changes are the result of studies that they've done over the last couple of years concerning water flow, different factors that have changed what our floodplain might look like within our city limits. As our planning director explained, a lot of that may be things downstream from us, changes that have changed that flow for some reason, either positively or negatively.
Spenner says folks involved in this change will be getting letters from the city. Folks are being encouraged to contact their flood insurance provider to find out how the changes will affect their insurance rates. Also last night, the council held a lengthy discussion on a new ordinance surrounding fire safety. If approved, the ordinance would require Knox boxes to be installed on all new buildings constructed in Huntingburg. The idea was proposed by Councilman Glenn Kissling along with Huntingburg Fire Chief Scott Patberg. Now, the boxes are designed to allow fire departments and other emergency personnel easier entry to a building in the event of a fire or other major incident like a chemical spill. Building owners would give a set of building keys to the fire department. Another goal is to limit damage to entry doors and other ways into buildings that comes about due to trouble getting in when there is a major emergency. Spenner says now is a great time to consider this idea with potential construction on the way.
As we expect a significant amount of construction and new buildings in our area as we go forward with the Stellar project, this is a good time to consider this as a safety measure.
The council did not make any decisions last night. They instructed Kissling and Patberg to work with City Attorney Phil Schneider to come up with a more defined ordinance. That ordinance will likely be presented during a future meeting. Officials with the Du Bois County Health Department have announced the availability of pediatric influenza vaccine. The vaccine is set to be available starting this upcoming Monday. It will be available daily from 8 to 11 a.m. and from 1 to 3 p.m. Adult influenza vaccine is also available. Now, private insurance, Medicaid, and Medicare Part B are being accepted as a method of payment. All insurance cards must be presented at the time of service. Now, the health department is partnering with VaxCare, which will submit claims to certain private insurance companies and Medicare Part B. Health department officials are once again reminding the public that the best way to prevent the flu is to get a flu shot each fall. They recommend that everyone 6 months and older get vaccinated. They also say there are a few groups of people who are at higher risk of getting the flu than others, and thus they need to be vaccinated. These are children younger than 5, especially those younger than 2 years old, adults 65 and older, pregnant women, and people who have medical conditions such as chronic lung disease and asthma. Now, a bit of a media-related story for you. A statue of famed World War II correspondent Ernie Pyle has been installed at Indiana University. Sculptor Tuck Langland was on campus yesterday to help install the slightly larger-than-life statue outside of Franklin Hall, the future home of IU's new media school on the Bloomington campus. Pyle was an IU student back in the 1920s. The statue depicts Pyle sitting on an ammunition box with his typewriter, notes, and a coffee cup on a table. Langland says the scene is meant to show how Pyle spent so much time during the war with average soldiers. Langland says he plans to be back on campus when the statue is officially dedicated next Friday, October 17th. IU commissioned the statue as a way to pay tribute to Pyle. Purdue University President Mitch Daniels has gone public, saying he isn't surprised that he likely won't receive all the incentive pay that's included in his contract. The former Indiana governor's contract with Purdue gives him a $420,000 annual base salary. He can also receive up to 30% more, or $126,000, based on factors such as graduation rates, student affordability, and fundraising. Daniels says he believes fundraising is a particularly important area for improvement within the university. He says the student tuition freeze that started last year means that Purdue has to try to fill the revenue gap. Daniels says Purdue also needs to do better on tracking how much students learn during their time in school. The university trustees are expected to decide on Daniels' incentive pay this month. Well, it's that season once again. Indiana politicians are taking to the airwaves in the final weeks of the 2014 campaign season, but their efforts online may actually be having a bigger impact. Democratic Secretary of State candidate Beth White and Republican Auditor Suzanne Crouch became the first statewide candidates to go on air with ads this week. Federal Communication Commission records show the pair bought a week of airtime across the state. However, Ball State University journalism instructor John Strauss says it's likely that some of the campaigns are also focusing heavily on social media and online interaction. He noted that White's ad, with its self-deprecating humor, seems geared to a younger audience that would be viewing it online. It's a far cry from 2 years ago when campaign ads flooded the airwaves. On a related note, as we wrap up tonight's news, Secretary of State Connie Lawson is now encouraging students, educators, and parents to take part in a national mock election aimed at helping people better understand democracy. The mock election will take place October 30th and is open to students of all ages. The mock election gives students from kindergarten to advanced placement and college levels a chance to learn through simulated experience about democracy and about the voting process. Student voters will be able to cast their vote for candidates running for Congress in Indiana. Teachers and parents can access resources and enroll in the mock election program by going to nationalmockelection.org/enroll-now. All right, coming up after the break, your local forecast, sports with Kurt Gooksell, and Inform with Dan Wilkinson. That's all up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Local people watching local people.